Hello, BookTube. If you can even hear me over the 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts that have been buffeting Boston all day, I have some mail for you. I'm pretty sure this isn't all the mail that came today. Probably a great deal of it was blown right off the front porch. But at least it's not freezing cold. I hate the wind. It cuts right in you. It gets right in amongst you. But at least it's not cold, and it doesn't look like it's going to be cold during the day in Boston for the foreseeable future. So, I mean, it's not going to be pleasant. It's not going to be warm, but it's not going to be freezing cold either. That's wonderful. Very windy though. So we have a bunch of packages here, no boxes, and the first package is a little odd. The first package is it feels odd. It doesn't feel like it comes from a publisher, so it might be a gift from one of you. I've warned you many times about doing such things, but you don't listen to me. Oh no, it is. All right, it is. Oh, great. I got the latest New York Review of Books in the mail, and the whole innards of the thing had been pulled out along the staples. So I got a few pages, and that was all. And it looked like it had been driven over by a truck. And I took a picture of it, of course, and I complained to my friends, as one does. I complained to the wrong friend. I complained to Mark Richardson, and he immediately said, "I'll put my copy in the mail to you." Very, very generous. It's this issue, which one of the only things that I had, one of the only things that I had from it was the table of contents. The table of contents had good news and bad news. It had Brenda Wineapple, who's fantastic, a fantastic historian, but it also had Charles Peterson, who is a raging a-hole, just an enormous brass-plated douche canoe. But you know, there's no law that says you have to read every article in the New York Review of Books. I will skip his article and concentrate on all these others. So who else is in here? Art Spiegelman, Ruth Franklin, James Fenton. Oh, fantastic. James Fenton is in here. Great. Tim Parks. Brenda Wineapple reviews American Demagogue, which is a big new biography coming out about McCarthy and the McCarthy era. Tim Flannery's in here. Fantastic. About Cities, the First 6,000 Years by Monica Smith. So an archaeology bent thing. I wonder how Mark yielded this up. Of course, I could have gone and bought another copy. It just bugs me. That's all. Okay, great. Well, there's plenty of stuff in here that has nothing to do with raging douche canoes. Great. Well, Mark, if you're watching, thank you very much. What a weird little corner of BookTube we have here. I swear, we're constantly sending each other things, constantly offering to go out of our way. There's no such thing as flame wars or bitter drama of any kind. I'm telling you, it's spoiling. It spoils you for any other kind of YouTube. But anyway, let's look at the rest of these things. So it started off wonderful. I now have a good deal of reading material to do. Oh, God help us. You know, okay, well, I don't have a pub sheet to read you for this next one because of the way the book was packed. The book was what is this? This is The Shame, a novel by McKenna Goodman, and the pub sheet was packed flush with the envelope. What am I supposed to do? Steam it open like it was in a murder mystery? Look at that. I have no idea. The whole thing's been destroyed. Okay, well, let's see what we can learn about it. There's one sheet on the inside of the book. Let's see if we can learn anything about it from here. Oh, good, right? Let's tell us plenty of stuff. So this is a novel. It comes out as a paperback original in mid-August. And it's The Shame. Let's see here. Alma and her family live a close life to the land. They raise chickens and sheep. They make maple syrup. Every day, Alma's husband leaves for his job at a nearby college while she stays home with their young children, cleans, searches for secondhand goods online, and reads books by women writers she adores. Then one night, she abruptly leaves it all behind, speeding through the darkness away from their Vermont homestead, bound for New York. In the series of flashbacks, Alma reveals the circumstances and choices that led to this moment. The joys and claustrophobia of their remote life through the passing of each season, her fears and uncertainties about motherhood, the painfully awkward faculty dinners, her feelings of isolation and failure, and her growing fascination with Celeste, the mysterious ceramist and self-loving doppelganger whose internet personality begins as inspiration for Alma before turning into a powerful obsession. So this is a debut novel set in Vermont, where the long Vermont winters give the main character the heebie-jeebies. It's it can happen. But, all right, well, I don't know what the rest of the paperwork is in here, but at least we have the part that counts. That's good. Let's see what this next one is. Okay. What have we got here? I tell you, flushly folded pub sheets are no good for somebody with no sense of touch. So let's see here. Okay, so this is a novel. It looks like a novel, yes. Yeah, it's a novel. It's going to be $25, and it comes out in early June. It's by Marlo Ben, and it's called Passing Fancies. A Julia Kidd novel. Could this be a mystery novel, a mystery series? I would love that. Let's see. It's 1925. Elegant young bibliophile Julia Kidd. There's a description that you don't often get. Elegant young bibliophile. I guess you have to suspend your disbelief. She settles in New York, eager to join the city's lively literary scene. She's befriended by Harlem singer Eva Pruitt, author of a manuscript rumored to reveal secrets of a glamorous nightclub where she works, which caters to fashionable white-only audiences. Publishers are competing for Eva's novel, keen to exploit fascination with the new Negro exoticism, term that was popularized by Alan Locke, and that is the subject of a great biography by him a couple of years ago. When the club's owner is found shot dead and the police brutally question Eva, Julia realizes her friend has already been judged guilty. Shaken and ashamed at her naivete about American justice, Julia vows to find the murderer before the police can hunt down the fugitive Eva. So it is a murder mystery, in a way. Heavily atmospheric, heavily historical, heavily literary. Julia's search draws her into Eva's world, where Julia must confront the privileges and blind spots of her race and social class, even as she pursues a cunning killer. Okay, so who is Marlo Ben? Marlo Ben is the author of Relative Fortunes, which came out from Lake Union Publishing. Is that this? Yes, Lake Union Publishing in 2009, last year. We might have seen it on this channel. It's not ringing a bell. It was a #1 Amazon bestseller in both the amateur sleuth and traditional mystery categories. And it was this author's debut. Relative Fortunes was this author's debut. So Passing Fancies is the second Julia Kidd novel. Great, a murder mystery. A period murder mystery. Fantastic. Okay, so this comes out in early June. Those of you who have a yen for the 1920s, the other roaring 20s, you're going to want to put this on your watch list and see if it intrigues you. Great. All right. So Marsh Mystery Madness will be long over by then, but even so, let's see here. Oh. Oh, excellent. Okay, this doesn't come out for a while, and this comes out in early June, and its subject matter suggests a potential reviewer. Its subject matter is birds and Russia. Suggests a certain reviewer. This is by Jonathan Slate, and it is Owls of the Eastern Ice. A quest to find and save the world's largest owl. Let's see here. Agzu is not the kind of place you can just go to, a 14-year-old local said to Slate upon disembarking the helicopter they'd ridden into the small Russian village. Between the harsh, freezing weather and the language and cultural barriers and the sheer desolation of the region, the boy had a point. People don't travel to Agzu in the Primorye region of eastern Russia without good reason. There are so few visitors, in fact, that any foreigner is a subject of fascination. Slate is no exception. Despite speaking fluent Russian and having studied the region's wildlife for years prior, every person he met had trouble understanding why he was there. Have you heard of the fish owl? He'd begin. Native only to Russia, eastern Russia, a remote region of China, and the Japanese island of Hokkaido, the Blakiston's fish owl is elusive, rarely seen even by ornithologists. When Slate sighted one by chance on an expedition to study tigers in 2000, it changed the course of his life. He felt he had no choice but to study this endangered and enigmatic species. His book, Owls of the Eastern Ice, chronicles his 5-year journey to learn everything he can about the fish owl. And what's a journey without strangers one meets along the way? much better. That's what it is, but I know the question was rhetorical. The strangers are always trouble. If they're human, they're always trouble. I have been very near to this area myself. I encountered plenty of strangers who were not human, and they were wonderful company at night and even sometimes during the day. Let's see here. The real stars of the book are the non-human cast members, the fish owls themselves. With an estimated world population of less than 1,000 due to development, deforestation, and hunting, the fish owl offers crucial insights into the vulnerability of the natural world, and Slate's research has been instrumental in bringing awareness of the species to a wider world. He is too late. If the estimate is 1,000, then the real number is 500, and 500 is too small. But this can serve as an epitaph as well as a study. So, okay, well, great. So this comes out in June. It's about birds. And it's about Russia. So I don't think I'll be reviewing it myself, unless the reviewer I have in mind pitches it somewhere else and gets a yes. Of course, I'm talking about Olive, a book who is a fanatical, has a fanatical interest in all things Russian and a fanatical interest in all things birds, and who is reviewing books for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and for Open Letters Review. Very proud to have her as a reviewer for Open Letters Review. But once one place says yes, once one commissioning editor says, I like the cut of your jib, I'd like to hire you for more work, other editors will do the same. So it's possible that she will want to pitch this book somewhere else. Natural history, for instance, or bird world, or whatever. We shall confer. If she doesn't review it for anybody else, she can review it for me. So, great. And of course, I want to read it myself. In fact, I might pitch it around too. Let's see this next one. Oh boy, okay. All right, it's another murder mystery. It comes out in May, early May, so too late for March Mystery Madness, but that's okay. And it's an author who wrote a book, a murder mystery previous to this that I liked. I naturally read it. It drew me like a moth to a flame. And this is, I guess, a kind of sequel. This is by Francine Matthews, and it is a Mary Folger mystery, and it's Death on Tuckernuck. There's a tiny number of you listening to this will even have any idea what on earth a Tuckernuck is. I have been, these feet have tramped over every single inch of Tuckernuck with beagles. Every single inch of it. But let me tell you about this. This is the 6th Mary Folger mystery. Let's see here. Before Death on Nantucket, which was the one in 2017, that came out in 2017. I think we might have seen it on this channel. I read it and really liked it. Detective Meredith Folger had been on a 19-year hiatus. During this period, author, historian, and former CIA intelligence analyst Francine Matthews wrote 24 novels, including the best-selling Jane Austen mysteries as Stephanie Barron. I've reviewed a couple of those mysteries, and I bet a lot of you have read them. This is Stephanie Barron. This is the same person who wrote all of those Jane Austen murder mysteries that are very good. They're very, very good. But The Pull of New England and Nantucket, whose world of double-edged intimacy, weaponized secrets, and entrenched bloodlines she's able to evoke with impressive skill, lingered, and Matthews decided to update and revisit her series. Mary Folger, a complex female detective as tenacious as she is deeply committed to the welfare of her beloved, complicated island, might be even more relevant and necessary to crime fiction than she was 2 decades ago, and we're thrilled she's back on the case. How wonderful. This installment brings us to Tuckernuck, a remote and exclusive private island off the coast. Fittingly, it is also off the electric grid, so an off-season Category 3 hurricane bears down on Nantucket. Dionys Mather and his father have a daunting task. As Tuckernuck's caretakers, they are responsible for evacuating its endangered residents, who range from a stubborn elderly native to an abandoned summer house pets of an absentee NFL quarterback. When the storm surge rises and warnings mount, Dionys must risk her own life by plunging back into the storm, but even she has no idea what evil the hurricane is sheltering. Meanwhile, the hurricane has thrown Detective Meredith Folger's wedding plans into chaos. When the Coast Guard notifies the Nantucket police of a luxury yacht grounded on the shoals off Tuckernuck's northern edge, with 2 shooting victims lying in the cabin, Mary dives into an investigation before the hurricane sweeps all crime evidence out to sea. As Mary's battered house fills with stranded wedding guests and floodwaters rise all over Nantucket Island, she is faced with the decision: what should she risk to bring a dangerous criminal to justice? So this is another Mary Folger mystery, and it's set on an island off the coast of. It's a. Now that I'm reading this, I'm realizing how little of the legal details I know. I'm not quite sure if anybody owns Tuckernuck or large chunks of it. Well, I'll happily research and find out, or maybe the book will tell me. And the book doesn't come out for a while. It doesn't come out until early May, but on the strength of the previous one, Death on Nantucket, I can certainly recommend. It's unlikely that this will fail. This author, not only was the previous book in this series really good, but this author has a vast amount of experience at writing good murder mysteries. So that's great. Another murder mystery. And then we have this last one. It's a big cardboard box, but envelope, but it's not a box. We don't have any boxes. What is this next one? Yes, here. Oh. What have we got here? Oh my. Oh my. Okay. This comes out at the end of March. We've seen it already on this channel, but it didn't look this good when we saw it. We saw the advance copy, and someone, somewhere, do I have a copy of the advance copy that I could maybe show you? No, not anywhere nearby. But I think we've seen this already. It's a historical novel, and the advance copy... you had to look past the design of the advance copy, I think, in my opinion, to the charms of the premise of the production. But you don't have to do that anymore. Someone decided to step in and fix the aesthetics of the thing. And boy, I like the result. I very much like the result. Okay, so this comes out at the very end of March. This is by Janice Hadlow. She's a BBC producer, and this is her fiction debut. And it is the other Bennet sister. Very much nicer. If you go online, you might be able to see what the original, or I don't know, Google it on this channel. You might be able to see what the original looked like. This is the finished copy, which has deckled edges, just a lovely thing. And I have already read this. I read the advance copy, and I've just been waiting on the finished copy to give it another read, because this is a subgenre of fiction that I just love. I just have a huge weak spot for this is a Pride and Prejudice pastiche novel. Well, let's read it here. Let's read it. This is a lively, meticulously researched expansion of Austen's literary creation and a new story in its own right. Hadlow's debut has been optioned for development as a television series. Let's see. The other Bennet sister reimagines Mary Bennet, the overlooked, plain, and studious middle child in one of literature's most famous families. Those of you who've read Pride and Prejudice many, many, many times, such as yours truly, will know Mary Bennet as the stiff and priggish, maladroit quoter of books, who looks fit to become just another neighborhood Mr. Collins. She doesn't have any of the coquettish irresponsibility of the youngest Bennet girls, and she doesn't have anything of the beauty or the presence or the intelligence of the older Bennet girls. At least that's what we're told in Pride and Prejudice. That's the impression that we're given in Pride and Prejudice. We'll come back to that. Let's read more here. Stuck in the shadows of her four beautiful and popular sisters, more likely to hole up in the library than dance a ball, Mary seems, in the original novel, destined for spinsterhood and solitary life. Not solitary, though. She seems destined to take care of her mother and stay at home and be her father's hostess when her mother dies. But Hadlow's Mary gradually realizes that she wants something more than this dismal fate. She longs for affection and intellectual fulfillment, and in search of them journeys to London to live with her aunt and uncle. Far from the country life she's known in Longbourn. In London, she learns who she truly is as an intellectual, a member of society, an individual, and a member of her own family. And in doing so, she finds a joy and confidence she never imagined possible. Armed with a new sense of her own worth, Mary is now ready, like her sisters before her, to find her partner in life. But when it comes to making the choice, can she be certain she is choosing the right man for her? And I read this and thought that it was, for a debut novel, astonishingly impressive, just amazingly so. It's full and rich. Some of the it very confidently moves into new territory, and that's wise, because some of the characterizations of Pride and Prejudice characters are ring less than true to me. It may be that they ring more true to you. Uh, Part of it is no doubt my own fault. I have been in a kind of readerly war with Pride and Prejudice since I first read it, because I don't believe it's fair. I don't believe Pride and Prejudice is fair to quite a few of the women in the story. Oh, and you might say, well, what does that mean? They're not real people, right? The novelist, Jane Austen, has given us a narrator. It would be a mistake to call that narrator Jane Austen. But the more I think about it, the more I think the narrator is Jane Austen, and that she's scoring petty victories on victims who can't fight back. In the context of Pride and Prejudice, I don't think in that narrative context the narrative is fair to Mrs. Bennet, to Lady Catherine de Bourgh, and also to this Bennet daughter, this bookish Bennet daughter. I have never thought that. I've always thought that Mary Bennet was. I didn't believe it. I read the character assassination bits in Pride and Prejudice, and I don't believe them. I don't believe that the character's as bad as the creator of the character is telling me they are, which is kind of weird. It's kind of weird. I think if you look at it just on the surface, just regardless of what we're being told, and regardless of what Jane Austen wants us to believe, her editorializing, if we just look at what the characters do and say, I think a lot of the animus against, for instance, Mrs. Bennet disappears. And is replaced by an appreciation of a woman who is doing the right thing, and may be a little silly, but has a hard-headed pragmaticness about it that her husband doesn't have and should have, given the time, given their circumstances. And right on down the line, I mean, Pride and Prejudice, of course, takes great joy in mocking silly and ridiculous characters and does a fantastic job at doing that. But, well, aside from the fact that sometimes I felt like some of those holdover characters, and believe you me, by the time you get 100 pages into this book, they're going to feel like holdover characters. Because Janice Hadlow creates a fictional world of her own that has connections to Longbourn, but very little to do with it. It's a very satisfying book. I've read, I don't know, probably a dozen books that imagine the future of Mary Bennet. Quite a few authors have tried their hand at it, including a couple of famous ones. And I've never read one that was more satisfying than this. What a sumptuous thing this is. So I'm glad to see that it got a lot of high-profile blurbs, including, if I remember correctly, from Jo Baker, the author of Longbourn. I think blurbed this. I think she did. Didn't she, or am I making that up? Yes, she did. And there's a lot of similarity. I think that Longbourn is a much shorter book and more pointed, but boy oh boy, there's a lot of Austiniana, there's a lot of Austen-related stuff coming out this year, and this is right up at the front of the list. So I'm very glad to have the lovely finished copy. That's great. If you are interested, you know the world of Pride and Prejudice. If you, for instance, love reading pastiche fiction and you're wary because so much of it is so bad, then order this, pre-order it, request it at your library, because this is an exception. This is you're going to like it. So there you go. That is the mail. Got the other Bennet sister in a beautiful finished copy. Death on Tucker by Francine Matthews. Owls of the Eastern Ice, about the fish owl of Russia. Passing Fancies by Marlowe Ben, a Julia Kidd novel, the second Julia Kidd novel. And The Shame by McKenna Goodman, about a Vermont housewife who runs mad. and also, speaking of Vermont, the New York Review of Books, which Mark was kind enough to send. That's wonderful. Okay, so that is the mail. The mail that survived the windstorm. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.